Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately called IPA USA. IPA USA is a USA affiliate of the International Play Association. As part of our efforts to support play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and these are conversations with folks who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all of our Porch Play Chats, and there's over 130 of them ready for you to view, by subscribing to our YouTube channel, being a friend on our Facebook page, going to our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner are the links where you can subscribe or be a friend. And we also have an Instagram that is actually going up and running, and because we have someone who knows how to do that stuff. So, I do not.
Relatable.
YouTube, yeah, YouTube, Facebook, and the website. That's about all I can do. But anyway, if you go to the website at ipausa.org under advocacy, you will see Porch Play Chats, and then you'll see the 2020 series, the 2021 series, the 2022 series, and so far in the 2023 series. And all of them are there and free to use. So feel free to use them and share them with your friends. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Heather Bernt Santy, one of our regulars, and we're so happy to have her. Heather has been living her commitment to children and their families and teachers for more than 30 years. You may know Heather from her work as the host of the popular early childhood podcast, which I want to talk to you about, That Early Childhood Nerd. But she also loves her work as a speaker, a consultant, a writer, and a professor. She's held just about every position in the field of early childhood: teacher, director, family child care provider, education director, you name it. She's probably tried it. Heather is an enthusiastic believer in children's right to play and in the research that tells us play is right. So today, Heather's going to talk to us about the 5 barriers to play, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too. I was so excited to see it in my calendar this morning because I had sort of forgotten this was today. So
this was the topic.
Yeah, very exciting.
All right. So what are the 5 barriers to play?
So this comes from a lit review that I did when I was doing some research and wanted to see, I know what my ideas about barriers are, but what is, the literature telling us? And I could kind of fit it into five categories. So do you want me just to give you all 5 and then we can—
I do, and then I want to talk about them.
Okay, great. So barrier number 1 is just defining play. There's just no one across the board definition for what we mean by play. So we get into conversations with each other and we'll be talking to someone that we think is using the same definition of play, and then you realize that you're not. So defining the term and agreeing on a definition is one of the barriers to really doing what I would call a free play pedagogy kind of thing with young children. Number 2 is practitioner preparation. So like whether it's college courses or whatever kind of in-service professional development, or this also ties in with the unevenness of qualifications to do the work. Number 3 is cultural barriers. And number 4 is parental attitudes. And number 5 is practitioner attitudes. So like almost anything we talk about when we talk about early childhood, they're all overlapped and interconnected. But this was a really helpful framework to help me think about advocacy and my work as both a consultant and a professor and a writer.
And a podcast person. All of those things together. And so I think these are definitely barriers. So how do we approach the one where defining play? And I do have to tell you, in the next quarterly play class that's coming out sometime in March, I'm linking an article from IPA World on what is play.
Great.
IPA,
Yeah.
right? What does it look like? What is its definition? How do we structure it and frame it? It's absolutely fabulous. And I think it was written back in 2014, so it's almost 10 years old, but still, unfortunately, needs to be spread far and wide.
Yeah.
So what do we do? So if and I was just talking to Kim Adams, who was on right before you, if we had 25 people in a classroom and we said, what is play? Everyone would give me a different definition, right? Even grad students.
Right.
And so how do we help hone in? How do we simplify what the definition of play is, so that even if you say free choice, I still have people that say, yeah, I put Legos and Lincoln Logs and magnetic blocks on a table and they have free choice.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's preference. That's not choice.
Simplify and clearly articulate what we're talking about, so that there is no misinterpretation. I think that's a real challenge.
For sure. Well, first, it just occurred to me that it looks like I'm wearing my jammies.
But I like it. I like that green and white stripe.
So yeah, I've got no problem being in public in my jammies.
Yeah, me either.
So I think, first of all, I think there just has to be an awareness that we're not all on the same page, right? Yeah. So whether that means when I'm talking to people about play, I very clearly sort of define my terms, like good research has to do. You have to define your terms at the beginning of any kind of study. So I've started to, I used to say play, and then I went to free play, and now I'm just starting to talk more about the conditions of play. So I really like, of course, Peter Gray's conditions of play and definition. So I'm talking about, the word is failing me, conditions where the child is free to choose. It comes from intrinsic motivation. I'm going to forget one of his, and they are free to quit when they want to quit. And the child really is making, the child or children involved are making the rules and making those decisions as they go through. So I think that's part of it, but I think also asking people when we're talking about play, so what does that really mean to you? So whether we're writing about it or podcasting about it, or if I'm doing a workshop and a participant, I almost said contestant, a participant wants to talk about, I might just ask for that clarification. And I think if play advocates and practitioners and enthusiasts, propagandists, whatever you want to call yourself, start implementing that practice, then it's going to sort of call attention to the idea that not that definition, not necessarily that someone else's definition of play is wrong, but let's at least understand that there are different ideas for that one word, and our conversations and efforts for children are going to be different based on those definitions. Yes. I've talked to lots of people who feel like if I use a toy for my very adult-led, adult-centric lesson plan, then it's play, because I'm using a toy instead of a worksheet. Yeah. It's better, maybe. Better. Better, but still not truly what I would consider play, or falling into that definition of play that I use.
When I do I have a workshop called Lost Opportunities, How Teaching Interferes with Learning.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's one of my favorites. But one of the things I do is I define what play is from my own interpretation. So when you are doing because I have them do a daily routine or schedule that they currently have, and then they answer 5 questions about, how do children learn? What do children like to do during the preschool day? What do children not like to do? What are the hardest times of a teacher's day? What do they need to know before they go to kindergarten? And then we compare what they wrote to what their schedule or routine looks like. And when I'm giving them that schedule or routine and we're looking at those answers, I give them the definition of what child initiated play looks like, right? And so they're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah, and even things like playful and play-based don't go far enough for me.
No.
So just deciding at the beginning of I'm looking at this from an educator or an advocate perspective. They have to know what I mean when I use the word, and I need to know what they mean when they use the word, so that we can have a really effective conversation about it.
And honor the differences, but so that they understand where we're coming from and why it's so important.
Yeah.
So I want to get to the practitioner prep, because I think you and I at the college level, this is like our baby, right?
Yep.
And so talk a little bit about that.
So this is based on, I do have a couple of studies I'll cite here in a minute, but mostly based on my personal experience of having been a college student at the associate's degree level, the bachelor's degree level, and the master's degree level, and from anecdotal data from colleagues. I did some interviews with folks who either taught early childhood or got a degree, some sort of college degree, last fall. And overwhelmingly, the report is that play doesn't get, play as I've defined it, doesn't get enough intentional attention in those courses. There might be a chapter about play in a textbook, or there might be more about like the playful learning that use a toy instead of the flashcards, and then it's play. And so most of the people I've talked to who are sort of advocates for freely chosen child-directed play got that information, whatever information they're using, either just from their own instinct or from some kind of reading or study outside of their coursework. And so that's troubling for me. And a
little bit.
So I came in as the program chair at the college where I work a couple of years ago, and had been an adjunct before, and of course now I'm teaching in the position. It just had to be a commitment for me to make sure that plays worked into every class session of every class. Like there's some sort of connection to be made, even if it's one of our family partnership classes, or a behavior class or a curriculum class. I have to be really intentional about including play in all of those conversations. There was there's two things I wanted to mention from the lit review that I did. One was a study from 2014. I have to look at my thing here. It's called College Coursework on Children's Play and Future Early Childhood Educators' Intended Practices, 2014, by Young and Jin, Jung and Jin. And that really said that, to me, even play-related coursework, what they found was even play-related coursework wasn't enough for teachers to leave their degree program and then go and feel comfortable and confident to be fully supportive of freely chosen child-directed play. There's a study that I go back to a lot, and it's old, but I still go back to it because nothing new has come along on the topic that I've found. It's from the
right,
but essentially it found that even when teachers had good, strong, developmentally appropriate practice kind of training, when they get into the work, they revert to their elementary education memories to direct their practice.
And they really do.
Yeah.
They really, really do.
Yeah. And another one that I read I don't have the citation for this one, but that there's just a lack of research specifically focused on including the child's perspective. Almost everything we teach is about to college students, or that I experienced as a college student, really focuses on how to get kids to do things, how to manage, how to curriculum them, and not as much about, well, here's how the child might experience that. And I feel like that shift would go a long way to moving practitioners to be more brave and confident about.
Well, and I think a lot of it is fear, right? So they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
They're afraid they're going to lose their job.
Yeah.
They're afraid that parents will not think they're professionals, right? And so I battle that all the time. And the questions are wonderful, right? Well, do you lose your job if you don't do what they tell you to do? And I said, I'm not saying that you're asking for permission. I'm saying you're doing what the right thing is.
Right.
And hopefully when they come to you and say, well, this isn't, what the schedule is, or this isn't the curriculum we gave you.
Yeah.
You're able to defend your decision and say, don't look at what I'm not doing, look at what I'm doing. Right.
Yeah. And you can still connect to some of the goals that,
of course you can,
that other schedule or that other curriculum was supposed to be meeting. So I say this sort of 50% tongue in cheek, 50% straight up. We are in a magical time right now of opportunity because there's a childcare staffing shortage and no one's getting fired.
Right.
So
no one's getting fired.
Do your play stuff.
No one. You'll be good.
Unless you're like actively doing harm. I don't think anyone's getting fired in childcare right now.
Well, and I always tell them, as their professor, you are welcome to have them call me. Yeah. Right. I'm happy to talk to your director. I'm happy to defend what it is that you're doing. Yeah. Or, your principal. I would love to talk to a principal about what is it that you're actually wanting in the classroom, right? Instead of this. Heather, I'm going to pause this for just a minute. Hang in.
Sure.
Right, here we go. Okay, so when we stopped, we were talking about, we're not worried really about getting fired these days because there's such a shortage.
Yeah.
So let's go to the practitioner practice, because this is the other place where I see lots of interesting things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the practitioner attitudes, the barrier with their attitudes. Yeah, I think it can be connected to that lack in their coursework or their prep. Also, our qualifications for working in early childhood are so uneven. Here in Indiana, in one type of regulation, you don't have to have any qualifications to work with young children. And, in others, the CDA, which I have a CDA, I teach it, I support it, but it's entry level, right?
It's an entry level, right?
Yeah, that's enough to be, the lead teacher. Connect that or add to that the high rate of turnover in the field. And it's hard to find someone who's got a good, solid sort of foundation and enough to have confidence to push against the factors that contribute to play disappearing.
I think all of those are very relevant. The other thing that I find is they think they're doing play.
Yes.
They can tell me exactly why it's important.
Yeah.
But when it comes to practicing, so the application of it, they have in many cases, they know it.
Right.
Because hopefully they've had it, right, in their studies. But when it comes to applying it, it's just like there's this disconnect between what they know and what they actually do. And until you kind of bring some light to that, they go, oh,
yeah,
what am I doing?
Yeah. And so I think, of course, that the coursework is important, but you need to have, it's like any kind of learning, right? You can remember it, but you need experiences interacting with it and practicing it before it's really solidified in a way that it becomes sort of natural. So if we aren't also giving them opportunities to observe and see real play working, and to practice in identifying the valuable stuff that happens in that play. That's one thing. Like, I think like that's just, you don't feel confident enough in it to really try it, or you don't feel confident enough in it to argue or defend what you're doing. So just reverting to that adult-led elementary school model is easier.
It is, yeah.
To actually implement, and then easier to sort of for the teacher's sort of emotional state while they're doing all that. Because one of the other studies that I read in this, when I was doing this research, said even for practitioners who really claim to believe that play is the best way to do it, they find it difficult to do in their daily practice. I think one of the biggest contributing factors to that is the myth of readiness. We're also focused for the whole first 5 years of children's lives. We're thinking about that one screening test
in kindergarten, and when they're toddlers.
Yes, we're worried already about whether they're going to be college ready when we've got them from birth to 5 with us. So just, and the reality is there is no agreed upon definition of what readiness looks like. We all think we know. It tends to fall into letters, numbers, shapes, and colors.
Or sitting in circle.
And sitting, right, and compliance, right? Yeah. Sort of the idea that if we just teach them early enough to ignore their needs, they'll be a really great kindergartner. And that, I mean, but practitioners, teachers, caregivers feel that. They feel that pressure. I don't want to minimize it. It's real.
No, they do feel that pressure. And they feel it from parents who are worried.
Yes.
Especially if they didn't have a really good school experience. Then the parents are like, when are they going to read? When are they going to write their name? When are they going to?
And that, that, of course, that leads into the parental attitudes barrier. For one thing, what I hear from a lot of people, practitioners, is this is what the parents want. Right. That's what parents want because they haven't been offered another perspective. Right. They're advocating for their child's success, and this is what they've been taught since before they were parents was important. So that's where our professionalism and our ethical responsibility comes in. I had a parent who wanted me to put Tabasco sauce on his 3-year-old's lips if she bit anybody.
Oh boy.
I wasn't going to say, okay, I'll do that because that's what the parents want.
Right.
I was like, that's harmful.
Yeah, can't do that.
And ineffective for working on a biting problem. So we can do the same thing with play. Parents might think they need to look for something else, but we can be the ones who say, you can relax. Great news. You can relax a little bit.
Yeah. It's going to come if we allow them these experiences of child-initiated long blocks of time of play without adult interference.
Yeah.
I had a parent who had a child who was biting. And she said, I said, so-and-so bit a couple of kids this week. Does he bite at home? Yes. Okay. What do you do when he bites at home? We bite him back.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, we can't do that. Can't do that. Yeah. So let's think of something.
Yeah.
That we could do both at home and at school to keep the biting from happening.
Yeah.
And she was like, really? You can't bite? No, we can't do that.
Because it makes sense, right? It seems like it should
does.
work.
If you're going to bite me, I'm going to show you how much it hurts and bite you right back.
Culturally,
instead of,
we don't worry about,
I get angry, I'm going to bite.
Yeah, we don't worry about the child's perspective. So this seems like it would work. Biting's a whole other porch play chat.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. And we could go through that. Okay. So we've talked about the 5 barriers. We've talked about defining play. We've talked about the practitioner's preparation. We've talked about the barriers with the belief of the practitioner, in many cases, it's the fear of what would happen if.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the parents' perception and beliefs about what school is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's given us a lot to digest and to try to find ways where we can support what we know is right for children, and not just say, why did you choose that activity? Because the children like it. You chose that activity, or they chose that activity. Look at all the engineering they're doing. Look at all the fine motor skills they're developing. Look at all the language they're developing. Look at all the, it is, I think, being able to define what's happening in the classroom.
Right.
When children are freely choosing.
Right. For me, it's enough that, oh, look how happy they are.
Yeah.
Look at this childhood they're having. But because we know that doesn't work for everybody, if we want to really change practices and policies and expectations, then we have to know what is valuable to the person we're talking to.
Yeah. And we have to show them, yes, look.
The reality is all those things you just listed are happening during the joy and during the childhood.
That's exactly right. And, I keep going back to Bev Boz's, parent amnesia when it comes to play, right? That they don't remember because their first school experience may not have been in an early care and education program. It might have been in kindergarten or first grade.
And it's harder to remember those early years for us than it is.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you've given us lots to think about and some strategies, I think, to addressing each of these. And for all the faculty out there who are working in teacher prep programs, please, I embed play in every course. They play independently for long periods of time. And then we come back and talk about the standards they met while they were playing, if they had been a kindergartner or a first grader or a toddler or a preschooler. And so that they can see it, they can experience it, and then they can make that connection between what actually happened. So that's the way I've been able to help them defend it. If I want, and fortunately in Pennsylvania, we have fabulous early learning standards that are.
Indiana's are good too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that is really helpful.
Yeah.
Because that really helps them see the connection between development and why and how much children learn when it's freely chosen, long periods of time. And it goes from there. So Heather, as always, this has been amazing.
Thank you. It's so fun.
So I'm going to close this up. Hang on just a second. So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.